Is climate change linked to violent behavior? Will hotter temperatures make you more violent? It's a good question, and a controversial study that draws a link between increased rates of domestic violence, assault, and other violent crimes and a warming climate. Interesting. As part of the study had said, as climate change makes vulnerable parts of the world more susceptible to weather-related problems, people move from an afflicted region to neighboring areas, bringing them into conflict with the existing population. Now that makes a lot of sense. It's very logical. That pattern has been evident around the world, and experts have even posited that conflicts such as Darfur should be regarded as climate-related. Now that kind of makes sense to me, as you know, because if climate change does make an area, render an area uninhabitable, and I'm not saying it has to be man-made climate change, it could be just natural changes in the climate, which do happen over time, right? Making the area unable to grow crops, you're going to move someplace else. And if there are people already there, you know what I mean, fighting for over limited resources. So that, to me, that makes a lot of sense. Now, the authors of the study, and this is published in the peer-reviewed Journal of Science, have decided to look at patterns of violence in Brazil, China, Germany, and the good old United States. Now, the authors suggest that even a small increase in average temperatures or unusual weather can spark violent behavior. Now, they found an increase in reports of domestic violence in India and Australia at times of drought, land invasions in Brazil linked to poor weather, and more controversially, a rise in the number of assaults and murders in the U.S. and Tanzania. What do you guys think? Do you guys are you guys buying this?
Absolutely. Hot, sweaty weather that you can't escape from makes me want to get violent, so I'm sure it happens with other people as well.
Daniel, you buying it?
To a certain extent, yes.
Okay, and for me, I'll agree with Ree. Hot weather makes me pissy. All right, I'm not a happy person when it's hot out, and I can imagine that if anybody else is like me and Ree and I, you would probably get mad if it was always hot, always muggy, because it makes you tired, it clouds your mind, and you are more likely, at least in my experience, to get angry.
Right. Like in Ohio here, when I did the story a couple weeks ago about how they were cutting off electricity to prisons, in prisons, yes, one of the main concerns was that it was going to create an environment an environment of frustration, hostility, which could lead to massive riots and violence.
So the lead author of the study, a person named Solomon Siang of the University of California, Berkeley, he said, quote, "What was lacking was a clear picture of what this body of research as a whole was telling us. We collected 60 studies containing 45 different data sets, and we reanalyzed their data and findings using a common statistical framework. The results were striking. The study found that conflict, including domestic violence and ethnic violence, was heightened as temperatures rose. The author said that in all of 27 studies of modern societies they looked at, higher temperatures showed a correlation with rising rates of violence. They could not say why this might be the case."
Well, it seems obvious to me. I don't know what they're so confused about. Like, why could this be? It's hot as hell outside and people are angry. Why is that?
Good point. Good point. The researchers had said more studies would be needed to confirm the results and explain why such a correlation might exist. Now, the underlying reasons could run from increased economic hardship as harvests fail or droughts to the physiological effects of hot weather, what we touched on earlier, how it makes you mad. Now, they brought up another great point with the failing harvest. When people start running out of food because the harvests aren't good, you're going to get angry. You're going to see more assaults or robberies. for people trying to steal food. And if they can't grow their own food, they're going to go somewhere else where there is food. So, I mean, that's understandable. And finally, he says, quote, the study showing that high temperature increases violent, according to Marshall Burke, who was also part of the Berkeley study, he says, quote, the study showing that high temperature increases violent crime in the U.S. and other wealthy societies seems to suggest that physiological responses are important too, with very short-run exposure to heat contributing to more aggressive and violent behavior. You know, I can definitely say from my own experience, when it's hot outside, I'm never in a good mood.
Yeah, me neither. I can't stand it. There's no escaping from it.
I don't understand how you handle it down there in Florida, Daniel.
Yeah, it must be like.
It doesn't seem to bother me. I mean, sometimes, I mean, you need air conditioning, basically to live comfortably. I mean, beyond that, you get used to it. But as far as people that aren't used to the weather, I mean, you become climatized. I personally believe when the weather gets below 70, 75 degrees, I think it's cold. But for people that aren't used to the changing weather patterns, I assume it will definitely have a psychological impact, without a doubt.